Everyone, welcome back. Tonight we're going to do something a little different. There was a request that came through on one of my streams to go through and do somewhat of a more advanced Git course, which I was more than happy to oblige, specifically leveraging GitKraken. So for those people who are unaware, I'm a GitKraken ambassador, and anyone who's spent any length of time around me doing development knows that I absolutely love GitKraken. It is my tool of choice, and I am a GitKraken ambassador. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But before we dive in, a couple quick things. First of all, the obligatory XKCD comic that must be shown anytime I talk about Git. Because the best thing and worst thing about Git is its power. And you can do quite a bit. And usually you do it by, as it indicates, memorizing various random commands, typing them in and hoping everything works, or doing what most developers do is when they get stuck and everything's gone belly up, you just torch your local directory and reclone from the remote, and you're back in a clean state and everything should be fine. That happens more often than most developers would like to admit. But hopefully after tonight, this is going to be a little bit instructional and you won't be torching your directory quite as often. I will say, if you are new to Git specifically and aren't familiar with some of the basic concepts, I'm going to kind of skim over those and assume that most people here have at least a rudimentary understanding of leveraging Git. You can make a commit, push, pull, terms like fetch, origin, remote. Those are all terms that make sense. And you at least have a rudimentary understanding of what all of those things mean. If that is not you and you're going, well, maybe I need a bit of a refresher, don't worry. I've got a line of resources for you. So first of all, learn.gitkraken.com. This is an absolutely amazing course. For anyone who is new to Git, this is great. Now, it is put out by GitKraken. You will see the GitKraken client shown at various points, but the focus on this is learning Git. And so GitKraken only shows up at places where it's useful to kind of visualize what is happening, because Git is complicated. And visualizing what's happening, a lot of people are visual learners, and just showing things on the command line, that just doesn't register, right? So it is used as a learning aid. It is not the focus of the course, and the vast majority of it focuses on CLI interaction and kind of low-level Git to make sure that you really understand the concepts. So if you are at all interested in learning it, this Foundations of Git certification course, absolutely amazing. Another one, not to be confused with learn.gitkraken.com, but naturally gitkraken.com/learn/git. Right? This is yet one more useful thing that GitKraken has put out. And then just a couple things to highlight. So specifically, various Git concepts that are worthwhile knowing. And you'll note some of these aren't necessarily even implemented in GitKraken client. Like worktree is an awesome command. It is wonderful. If you find yourself making multiple clones of a repository because you want, two separate branches checked out side by side, stop what you're doing, go read this article. Dwayne did a fantastic job of explaining it. But this isn't something that's actually showing off GitKraken client. This is actually just showing off the power of Git and what you can do with it. So another amazing thing, as well as a lot of kind of best practices, tutorials, definitions. GitKraken obviously has a vested interest in all developers understanding Git really well, because otherwise you're not going to use the tool effectively. So take advantage, lots of free good learning resources. The other thing I will point out, shameless self-promotion, is I have several videos that I have done on learning Git and GitKraken. Now, these first two are really focused around, and for people scrambling, watching the recording of this later, just check the description. They'll all be down there. The first two videos there are all around kind of learning Git. Specifically, those were videos that I did kind of targeting either like university level people who are not completely brand new, but somewhat new-ish. There's not a lot of expectations of prior learning. And then also targeting around Hacktoberfest. So specifically leveraging it with GitHub, doing pull requests against open source repositories, syncing up your own fork, similar things. I will say there's a couple things in there that have gotten a little easier. I think a few of those videos are a couple of years old. GitHub has released a lot of features that make some of those processes a one button instead of multiple clicks, but there's nothing wrong in them. And then the last one I will drop in here was one that I did around the GitKraken CLI, which is something that we will take a look at here in a little bit. Okay, there's that. Oh, last but not least, one, GitKraken's YouTube channel. They put out a lot of good content. Everything from GitCon is up there. More importantly, they put a lot of videos of me out there, so that's great. Yay of being an ambassador. Izzy, welcome. Looking to get today then. Yes, we are specifically, I'm going to call this like a 300 or 400 level Git. And the big asterisk next to it, since I'm probably going to bounce around all over the place and mix and match things. Also, if anybody watches this and goes, ooh, GitKraken, that looks cool and fun. You can find one if you have trouble finding my stuff. Here are all of my links. And if you are inclined to sign up for a GitKraken account, it makes me feel warm and fuzzy if you use my referral link. If you don't, no biggie. Not a big deal. The only disadvantage that I wish would get changed is GitKraken tracks referrals at account signup, not at the point where somebody goes from like purchasing a subscription. So you can go sign up for a free account, and I often run into people who go, well, I've already made an account, but after working with you now, I want to actually get a paid copy. It's like, well, yeah, you kind of already made an account. So it's like, yeah, you could delete it and recreate, but that's a lot of work just to give me a little referral bump. It's like, if you're doing it new, I'd appreciate it. If not, I'm not going to stress about it at all. Okay, so my favorite GitKraken. And I'm going to just slide this guy over here just a little bit, just so my big fat head isn't covering up some of the stuff that I want to show off, because I want to point out, actually, let's just bring this up so it's not behind my thing. There we go. And then I'm going to close that out so my Skype window doesn't do something crazy like pop up while I'm in the middle of something. Actually, real quick, we're going to just do this real quick because apparently I left stuff open and I don't know what's on these screens behind my GitKraken. So I'm going to just close some stuff down real quick. Boom, there we go. Okay, much better. Clean desktop, happy desktop. Yeah, as you can see, I was busy. I didn't spend a whole lot of time prepping, which is great. So a couple things I'm going to point out that's slightly different. For anybody watching this in the future, I am on GitKraken version 9.12.0, which is latest and greatest as of February 28th, 2024. You'll find that if you look at their release notes, which I think, view release notes, that things tend to drop monthly-ish, right? You can see like January 10th, February 13th, December 13th. It's about a monthly cadence, give or take a little bit. Occasionally there's, interim releases if there's, bad bugs or whatnot that sneak in, but it's about every month you can usually expect. And so far every month, I love reading the release notes because there's basically just nothing but, ooh, that's fun and cool and new and very exciting. I will also point out, I have mine set at ye big zoom. So I run mine at a high zoom for presentation purposes. Sane people don't do this. So, yeah. Anyway, ignoring that. So you fire up GitKraken and usually you're greeted with something like this right out of the gate, except for your favorites and recent repositories are probably blank. And here's the thing. Most people don't realize there's a scroll bar here. Look at that. There's more stuff down here. And this is one of the, it's kind of an unfortunate, just with my screen resolution and zoom and all that, it's an unfortunate horizon line. It does not sit well. But so links to all of kind of the new fancy stuff. And I will point out, if you are ever having trouble with GitKraken, whether you are a free or a paid customer, I cannot recommend just hit the contact support button. Their support people are amazing. I've had nothing but great experiences every time I've gone through it. They also have a Slack channel you can go and join if you want to drop in there. You're usually going to get faster responses just going through the email support thing. But their support people do watch some of the Slack stuff, and a lot of the ambassadors sit in their Slack channels as well. So you'll see that go through. But when you come in here, one of the first things that you are probably going to want to do is integrate it with an existing repository. Very rarely do I find that people come in and they go, okay, we're going to start from scratch. It's no, you've got a repository you want to connect to. Some people are brand new, and if you want to like create a new repository, great. But most of the time what you're looking to do is down around these integrations. And you can see here, I've got it connected out to my GitHub. They have lots of integrations with all the big providers. So GitHub, GitLab, BigBut, Git, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The other place you can find this is underneath preferences. So down here, you'll note I come through and it's like, okay, I need to go through and get all of these set up. Now, I will point out all of these preferences here are on a per profile basis, right? So there's a couple things that get really interesting. Like, for example, Azure DevOps. You can only integrate with a single Azure DevOps instance. And for most people, that's probably okay. Right? But like I have a personal one, I have one for Intelitech. Oftentimes I work for clients that use Azure DevOps. That's more than one, right? That's a problem. Just make more profiles, right? I will oftentimes make separate profiles, almost kind of centered around what the integrations are for that profile. Like in this case, it's personal. So this is a lot of things that I work on in my personal time, right? So it's oftentimes tied to my GitHub because that's where I spend a lot of my personal time working on projects. But for business type stuff or clients that I work with, I will oftentimes make separate profiles for each of those so that those can be appropriately integrated with the right ones, right? That's the first thing that you probably want to look at doing. And there's good documentation as far as doing the connections. Most of them, it's just going to be an OAuth style login. GitKraken will come with it already set up to interface with your CLI if you are using multiple programs to manage your repositories. And this is specifically looking at you, Visual Studio. They can fight with each other because when you are working with a Git repo, all of the stuff lives inside of that .git directory, right at the root of your repository. And so quite often IDEs want to do helpful things like, show cool little icons about what files are modified and all that kind of jazz. Occasionally you will run into problems where your IDE is either using or locking a file and GitKraken is also trying to access the same file or vice versa, right? That happens, especially on Windows. If you're on OS X, this is not nearly the same problem as on Windows. Windows file locking is a pain in the rear. So just be aware of that. I will oftentimes turn off other Git integrations on my other tools because it's not worth the pain and suffering. The other thing to be aware of, I'm going to show a lot of Git operations like rebase that cycle a lot of files around. It is sometimes worthwhile to just shut down your IDE. Right? Most newer IDEs start up in a reasonable time frame and don't suck anymore. I remember when Visual Studio took like 2 minutes to start. It was horrible. And depending on the side of your project's solution, it may still take that long. But be aware when you do big operations that move around a lot of files, having multiple applications that are all acting on that same directory can be problematic. If you are using GitKraken to do like a rebase, where directories maybe got renamed or deleted or similar, check your terminals as well. That's another case where I see people not realize they're like, I'm getting all these weird errors. I closed my IDE. What could possibly be locking it? Well, here's the dirty little secret. Your terminal does, right? If I CD into like my material design repository, right? And then, CD into, pick a better one, right? This guy's locking on this directory. That's annoying. If I try to do a rebase where this directory gets renamed, GitKraken is going to have all kinds of problems. And there's feature requests out that try to do better and surface errors that are a little bit more friendly. But sometimes the only error that GitKraken is going to receive is coming from the OS that says file locked. You just host, right? So if you are trying to perform an operation and it seems like something's not deleting or something's weird, step one, look for applications that might have it locked. Common blames, IDE, and your terminal. Those are usually the ones that I blame first. Okay. Open GitKraken, repository. Yeah, okay, so let's pop this guy up. So I'm going to pick on my material design repository because one, it is big enough and large enough that it presents some interesting use cases on what to do. And you can see that I've got things kind of spread all over the place. So the first thing I'm going to point out is over here on the left. You'll note we've got all of these sections. I currently have them all collapsed. These are configurable, right? You can right click over here. If you decide, hey, you know, I don't care to see my issues. I don't care to see submodules. Those aren't things we're using. Great, turn them off. Doesn't matter. Turn them off. Turn them off. Make it pretty. Make it the way you want it to be, right? The most common areas over here are going to be local and remote branches. And you can see local, I probably need to clean some of these up because I can guarantee you I am not actively interested in 22 of these branches. Most of these are probably dead PRs. And I should probably clean some of them up because yuck, right? But you can see your local branches here. Just as a side note for a lot of these things, like for example, feature auto suggestion, Git doesn't actually have folders. Right? It's just a common thing that a lot of tooling shows where if you put a slash in the name of a branch, it interprets the slash as a hierarchy. So when people are coming up with branching strategies, it is very common to use this slash because so many tools will treat that as like a directory hierarchy. And conceptually, it makes sense. We're used to file systems. They have slashes. Great, right? We just reapply that here and it works because the tooling makes it work. But secretly, branches are just strings, right? There's nothing fancy. But it is worth noting those here. Under the remotes, you'll note I have a lot of remotes. So Origin is the primary one out on GitHub. This is we'll call it the lead one that everybody forks off of. And you'll note I've got remotes set up for the other contributors to the project because they're contributors. I'm very often going through and taking a look at their stuff. I'll draw your attention to this little eyeball here, right? So you'll see my graph is showing me lots of information. And sometimes this is too much information, right? Sometimes I don't bloody care, right? So whoop, 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 whoop. And now we're down to showing only the stuff that I actually care about, right? If we turn this off, this is now down to just local, right? I am no longer looking at any remote refs at all. I am just bringing these things in. And you know, this graph here, I use the word remote ref intentionally because this is showing me all of my local branches, which is what this little itty bitty computer icon indicates. Local branch. If you see a different icon next to it, like for example, this guy here, this is a remote branch. Now, some Git providers, or depending on how people have set up their branches, may not have icons, and so you lose a little bit of value if you haven't set an icon up. So if you don't have an icon, go set one. It makes it pretty. It makes me happy. Makes it easier to look at. If you want to see your picture show up on GitKraken, they just use Gravatar. So go set a profile picture tied to the same email address in Gravatar, and poof, you now get a picture showing up. So this is not actually GitKraken setting a profile picture or anything. It's literally just calling out to Gravatar and saying, hey, I've got this email. You got a picture for me? Great, I'll use that. Otherwise, they use this cool little, I don't know, they gen a little pixel arty thing. I remember reading about the thing that gens it at one point. Don't remember the name. Okay, but being able to go through and hide remotes, incredibly valuable. The other thing that is oftentimes really valuable, especially when you're trying to track history, like you'll note here, I have my origin master branch is sitting here, but my local master branch is sitting here. And one of the things that is quite common to do is to you start to kind of like trace these lines, and you can see how the lines change color as you kind of go horizontally across, which is helpful. That's nice, but not always the most useful, right? Sometimes, especially if people aren't always squashing, you don't have linear history, things get all spaghetti like. One of the coolest things here is you can right click and you can just say, okay, I'm going to solo this branch. Right now I am looking at this branch and this branch only. I don't have to worry about anything else. Now I can start bringing in other things. So versus hide, which is exclude, solo is include only, right? And then you add to it depending on what you want. So occasionally this can be really helpful, especially if you've got like a repo with lots of activity, lots of branches, lots of contributors, whatever. It's like, too much, stop. Yeah, this is a wonderful feature. Then, stop soloing, get you back out. You're back into happy place. So be aware of both of those wonderful, wonderful features. Stashes. This is one I'm really bad at leveraging well. So you'll note I've got stashes sitting around, and the git stash command is fairly common if you've got pending changes. One thing that I always forget about is you can come in here and you can edit the stash message, right? Because normally what you do is when you've got work in progress, you just come up and hit the stash button and poof, you get this nice little dotted box with a little thing. But you can actually like put in a useful message like work I was doing, right? And now look at that, it's updated. I will point out, by editing the message, this is just like when you edit the commit message on a commit, right? You'll note the timestamp edit chronologically moves forward because it's now been edited. But you'll now note if my stash has a useful message, when I'm looking at it over here, now remarkably more useful to me in terms of finding it. That actually leads into one of the next cool things, cloud patches. This is one of the latest features from GitKraken. This is something that they are actively working on. So if you play with it, check it out. I believe you have to, if I remember right, I think it's still under the experimental features. Yeah. There used to be a checkbox here, and I'm trying to decide if my window is just hiding behind my taskbar like it normally does. Nope, it's just there. Oh, it probably only shows up if you disable it. So if you are leveraging cloud patches, just know that this is something where the cloud patch itself lives out on GitKraken servers. If you have an enterprise SKU, you can also do private storage on your own S3 bucket. So if you say, I don't want my patch file going anywhere near somebody else's server, hands off, that is an option there as well to be able to go and put it elsewhere. But the experimental feature also shows links where there's more updates and information. So if people are worried about leveraging it, it's right there. But a cloud patch is a great way of being able to collaborate with other people. So for example, work I was doing, right? Share stash as cloud patch, right? So I can do this on a stash. If I wanted to do it on a particular commit, that's an option as well. Or if you have working changes, you'll see a little purple icon on the right that lets you do it. So the advantage here is if I say, you know what, I really want to share this out with somebody, I can go ahead and create a cloud patch, right? Anyone with the link, anyone in my org or only collaborators, right? Stuff I was doing, right? Create patch, boop, boop, boop. And now I've got a cloud patch, and I apologize for the obnoxious green. It's my theme. Bright green, because nothing says successfully created cloud patch like obnoxious green in color. But we now have a link, and if I remember how to use a browser, sure, that'll work. Browser, come here. Paste. That's not the right link. Oh, I didn't click the button. Stuff I was doing. Copy cloud patch link. Need the link. Actually, I have to. So if you don't click the copy button, it won't copy. So in case that's not obvious. And then you get one of these guys and you can say, ooh, do I want to open it in GitKraken client? Why, yes, I do. Thank you very much. And it goes, hang on, let me go get that for you. And then you can start reviewing the cloud patch and decide if you want to actually apply it or not. Right? So very handy. Error messages need improvement. Error messages disappear. Yeah, there are places where, and I've reported several of these as well. Definitely when you have specific instances of things that fail, do the where's the button? Why am I not seeing this? You release notes, support log, contact support. No, browse or submit feature requests. This guy here, the feedback, they actively take in this feedback and you will see things come through. Like there's quite a few things that I've submitted to them and it gets fixed in another release or two, right? Like they still are developers. They still have their own release cycle, right? They have to triage and do all that. So it's not like you submit it and the next day you get an update, but stuff gets fixed. Like they don't let it sit. Their target audience is developers and they are developers and they make it work well. So definitely, especially because there was one specifically around like their merge and conflict and their messaging was horrible. I'm sitting there going, I was like, I don't know what left and right. I don't know what's base. I don't know what my branch is. I'm doggone confused. 2 releases later, much better messaging. At least in my one specific case of where it was. So that's the thing, is be specific. General ones are hard to fix. If you're specific and go, in this particular instance, this is what I see. This is what it would be much better worded as. Mwah, gold. Absolute gold. Okay. Pull requests, tags. I will just point out the pull requests and issues are very similar kind of in nature, in my opinion. These are very useful for just keeping track of things. So like awaiting my review, I can go through and see this. How well these work very much depends on how well the pull requests are managed on your provider. Right? So in this case, awaiting my review only is going to flag PRs where I'm assigned as a reviewer. Well, this is an open source project. Not a lot, like only so many people have access to edit things, right? Directly on the repo. There's 4 of us that can do it. So sometimes the usefulness of this deteriorates a little bit, like awaiting for my review or assigned to me or similar, right? So there is a little bit of that. But at minimum, the all pull requests and the search for pull requests, specifically the usefulness here, like I can see Nikolai's branch sitting there for this prepare for smart hint, but I can come in here, I can go through and look at it and go, great, this is where I can see this. I can hit review changes if I want to tap something in. More importantly, we can jump right out and say, okay, let's actually start stepping through this. But more useful than that is you can right click, and now I've already got a remote set up to Nikolai, so this is convenient. And he did this PR on the main one. Let me see if I can find one that's not. Are these all Nikolai? No, there we go. Okay, so here's a PR that is on a remote that I am not on, right? I have not added this one yet. It doesn't exist up here. This one here is incredibly convenient, right? This last option, add remote and check out branch. Like normally, if you were to do this on the command line, you'd have to go get add remote, put in the remote, set that up, then go through and actually check out the branch from that remote. GitKraken, it is right click, left click, and you're done. That's pretty good, especially for an open source thing where I'm often getting pull requests from outside forks. I don't remember how many forks there are on this repository. Let's just say a lot. I don't know exactly how many this is, but there's a few, right? I don't want to deal with finding them. I want to right click, create it, and away you go. And then you've got the branch pulled down. You can open it up if you want to run it, do code review in your IDE type situation to make sure things work. That is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. The other place where cloud patches can really come in handy is when you don't have access to that other person's repository to be able to push back. Like in GitHub, you have to leave the checkbox enabled when you do a pull request to someone else's fork that says, hey, let contributors on this thing that I'm pushing back to push changes back to my branch. Because sometimes people want to make some changes before they merge your PR, right? That's the point of code review. Sometimes there's a little back and forth. That's good. Sometimes you don't have access. Sometimes you want to suggest changes that are outside of the diff of the pull request. It's like, yeah, you edited this thing here, but we can't just change this string. You got to change this, this, and this. And sometimes that's hard to communicate. And so you could always just create a cloud patch and send that over and say, hey, please apply this, right? That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. And then GitHub issues. I don't know if I need to say much more. It's your issues, right? The one nice part is you can just right click on an issue and say, yeah, make me a branch, right? I decide, you know, this binding issue is one I want to work on. Let's make a branch. And then you can see it pre-populates it with a name. If I want to keep it, yeah, sure, great. And we're off to the races, right? New branch, I'm ready to start working. We're good to go. Easy. Easy, 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 easy. Tags are a list of tags. I don't know what to say about it. Aside from it's really nice to be able to turn them off when you have a lot of tags. Okay. Sidebar, usefulness. Okay, this little guy here, command palette P, this is potentially also one of the most underutilized features of being able to drop in. So if you're familiar with like VS Code, how they have the little search bar at the top to do everything, this is the GitKraken equivalent of, I want to find things, I don't know what my command is, right? I want to search commits, I want to find things where they contain Kevin. That's probably a horrible thing to search for. I'm an author on too much of this, I don't know. Combo box, right? We decide, hey, let's go through and find where this combo box was actually fixed. Yeah, that one, right? So being able to leverage this to jump in, there's a lot of areas of GitKraken that aren't completely keyboard friendly, that you still have to use your mouse to clicky on. Yeah. The command palette's not one of them, and it lets you get to a lot of things very quickly. So that is incredibly useful. Okay, next thing. For people who really, 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 really like their command line, because they exist, especially with Git. Some people are command line wizards. I am not. Anybody who's watched my typing skill knows why. But if that is you, I will posit that this visualization, this graph here, is one of the biggest assets that GitKraken brings to the table. Being able to have this sort of visualization, right? You can even collapse it if you don't want it to. Like, you can go all the way wide, or you can just start shrinking it up and view everything chronological. This is incredibly, incredibly powerful, right? You can also change the, if you right click, if that's not obvious, right click on the top, you can like bring in extra columns if you want to see stuff to go along with it. If you want the SHA or any of that extra stuff, right? I like mine a little cleaner, so I do that. But this is very powerful. But some people are like, well, I like the visualization, but I don't like the buttons. Give me a terminal. I want my terminal. I present to you a terminal. This terminal is powered by the same thing that powers the terminal in VS Code. Trying to remember the magical library. It's blanking on it right now. But you can drop in here, and now you have, right? You can do your Git commands, right, in the terminal and have the visualization. And some people may go, you know what? That's not good enough, right? There's all this extra stuff, right? I just want my terminal. Okay. New terminal tab. I present to you just a terminal, right? And you'll note the fancy command of GKC gets you into here, and you can actually do GKC graph. It turns out you have to actually be in a repository for this to work. So stand by while I switch to, because when you just do that, so GKC, there we go. It detected I'm in it. I have a graph. And Izzy points out GitKraken license is currently 50% off. Oh, I didn't even say that. Izzy, you're making me look bad. I appreciate that. Yes. Licenses. Limited time sale. This big thing here. So Boom. If anybody is interested. So, and for reference, what I am showing off here right now is just Pro. Teams and Enterprise, these are for collaboration. Like if what you are doing is just managing Git repos and you're worried about yourself, Pro is fine, right? That's great. If you are collaborating with people, there are some nicer features that come along with being able to leverage this. So, you know, just as a thought, because software development is typically not a solo sport. Sometimes, not often. Not often, right? Anyway, if you want a terminal but you still want the graph, you can get it. You can get it. The terminal tab is built into there. Never understood what git lens is. Oh, hang on. We're getting there. We're getting there. I'm warming up to this. So let's go one step further, because obviously this is nice to have a terminal, but I still had a terminal inside of a GitKraken client. What if I don't even want that? What if, I'm a Windows terminal guy? Because obviously I'm a Windows guy, because reasons. So what we actually have as well. Why did I not save my links? Let's see. Did I not save it? Apparently I didn't save it. Okay. GitKraken CLI. Boom. You can use GitKraken on the CLI. Now, this is not the same. I just want to be clear. I realize I went from terminal tab to terminal, right? And so I have GK, right? Boom. So, I should share the link. Boom, there we go. Okay. GK on the command line and the terminal inside of the client are not quite equivalent, right? The GK CLI application is designed to bring in the other stuff that GitKraken provides that you don't get. Because if you are a person who likes your terminal, you already like git.exe, assuming you're on Windows, or just Git, right? You're already familiar with that. You don't want a second tool for leveraging, for doing like your commits and your pushes and all that. You don't need one. You've already got one. It works. Why would you need another one? What you don't have, though, when you just use the command line, is you don't have the extra stuff that comes along with GitKraken. You don't have the nice issue management. You don't have the list and view PRs. You don't have the workspace stuff. You don't have cloud patches. All of that extra stuff that comes along, especially the collaboration features, you lose that when you're using git.exe, because git.exe just does Git stuff with your repo, which is cool, but doesn't give you the rest of it. Windows guy, because compiling the kernel is a pain. It's also what I'm used to. I started in like the .NET realm before it was cross-plat, when Windows was the choice. Now you can do .NET and Windows is a choice. But I'm now hopelessly addicted. But yes, there is a handful of people, especially among the GitKraken ambassadors, who are very much Linux fans. So for reference, GitKraken works great on Linux too. GK not recognized in my PowerShell terminal. Make sure. So wingit install GitKraken CLI. So if you have not executed this command, I expect it not to work. But this will be what should get you the GK command up and running. They also, if we go over, you can see it is the releases are currently hosted out on GitHub. The actual code for this is not currently open source. Okay, one more thing, because and this is worth noting. If you have a GitKraken license, you have access to all the tools, right? You didn't buy a GitKraken client license. You bought a GitKraken license, which means you get all the GitKraken things, and you get to pick which tools fit your needs the best. right? Because there is more than one option here, right? We've got client, CLI, GitLens, we've got GitKraken Dev, we've got a browser extension. I don't know if people have noticed this, right? Like when I'm sitting over on my when I'm sitting over on the GitHub, show this off because this is kind of cool. Offline installs. You can download. So I assume you're talking about GitKraken client. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for what I'm about to say. So I'm going to just say it anyway and hope for the best. If you download the GitKraken client, right, this GitKraken setup exe, you can put on a thumb drive and take offline and it'll install. Now, there's only so much, like, if you are always offline, like if you're trying to use it in an air gap network or similar, like there's some stuff that's just not going to work because a lot of the features involve talking to like integrated remote servers at like GitHub or similar. So but this setup exe is actually a squirrel based installer, which means the actual application itself is just appended inside that exe. It's tacked onto the end. It's really fun. If you want to have some fun, pop it open with a hex editor. There's some excitement to be had. I may have been doing that recently. So, but yes, you can take the installer offline. So browser extension, right? So if we go here, right, and we do like this, happiness. Happiness is a browser extension. So just the little things that let you go through and be able to pop this open. This also works in Azure DevOps as well. You can add it into your Chrome, Firefox, or pretends to be Chrome browser. And then where is did not show a link to it? Why don't they have a link to it? Should have a link to it. If we go here, where is browser extension? Here's the other cool thing. This guy's open source. So find an issue with it. There you go. There's even open PRs. I didn't even know this. Look at that. Look at that. PRs and everything. So, okay, GitLens. Since we're on the topic of, so I'm gonna grab this real quick and move it because I don't remember what I had open. Oh, it was my Velopack stuff. Yeah, sure, fine. We can show this. This is a closed source repository, so whatever. But it's my closed source repository, so the only one who's going to be angry is going to be me. So I'll just choose to not be angry. Okay, so GitLens. Right, so if you go to your extensions and you go GitLens, so GitLens was a product long before, well, I should say long before, that existed separate from GitKraken. Several years ago, GitKraken actually purchased it, and the author of GitLens actually joined GitKraken to make GitLens better, to start doing the integrations. And so since then, GitLens has been getting a bunch of features because it turns out when your day job becomes, hey, we want you to make your thing better, you make it better. It's awesome. But GitLens ends up giving you a lot of that GitKraken client goodness, but in a slightly different thing. Like there's a bit of a balancing act because on one hand, you don't just want GitLens to be GitKraken client in VS Code. That's not really why people liked GitLens in the first place. Where is my, here we go. Okay. So, but you do want it to be something that, let's see, and I will admit, I am not great at GitLens commit graph, right? So you'll note there starts to be some similarities around here that start to look real similar, right? This starts to feel very, very GitKraken-y. You can see the history, but there's extra stuff that exists inside of GitLens because GitLens existed first, and so there's been this kind of code sharing, merging. But you'll note we've got a very similar looking graph. Now, in this case, the graph is just straight because that's all that exists. You'll note there's a different thing where before I had blocks. I don't know what that icon is, but that's the, hey, we don't know what the user picture is, so we're going to slap one in. And you'll note there's a little bit of a difference in like the changes tab, right? We get a concept of the size of these things, which seems completely unusual for me to have PRs that are slowly just so tiny. But I was doing pipeline work, so it was fix YAML, merge, hate myself, fix YAML, merge, rinse, repeat, right? So the short version, GitLens is bringing you all of the GitKraken-y goodness, but in a first-party VS Code type situation, right? And you also have the you can show lines change, commits, the same type of search filtering behavior like what everyone wants. There's one more thing over here that I'm looking for that I'm not seeing. There's a very cool visualizer that I don't remember how to get to that I wanna find. It gives you kind of like a heat map showing you the stuff. But ultimately, this is what it is. The visual file history? No. Must be buried under a diff somewhere, and this is where I don't use it enough because I don't spend enough time in VS Code. VS Code is my text editor and my markdown editor, and I spend so much time in Visual Studio I don't leverage it nearly enough, and I probably should. So maybe I'll stop embarrassing myself and bounce out of there. So, but that is what GitLens is. But again, emphasis on if you bought a GitKraken license, you have the tools. Use them, right? And you can see GitLens for JetBrains coming soon. So, JetBrains users rejoice. It'd be interesting to see how this shakes out. JetBrains users oftentimes don't favor GitKraken, I've noticed. And I think part of it is because JetBrains has really good Git support built into their IDEs. It's actually pretty nice. I don't like their visualization of the graph as much, but their merge tool is exceptional. So do with that what you will. So because I can't pick on them too much because certain tools do things better. But overall, Kraken wins. Okay. Back into here. Okay, so let's actually do some stuff in here and make this a little more interesting. I'm going to try to not botch things too much. So a couple common things that I see happen a lot. So one, let's talk pull requests, branching, etc. There's a long-standing debate about what is better. Should you do merge commits? Should you rebase? Which one is the right thing to do? Specifically, when you've run into a situation where it's, hey, I've got a branch I've been working on, I've got a feature, I'm ready to merge it back in. Ah, crap, there's a conflict. What do I do? Right? If it's one of my repos, the answer is you rebase. However, that is definitely a personal preference camp. Let me jump back here really quick because I wanted to show off. Let's see, because it's underneath here, and I think it is under best practices, if I remember right. No, where is the? Let's see, branching. They have a wonderful article on. This one here. GitKraken branching. There's a great compare and contrast. Yeah, this one. Yeah, this is what I want. What is the best Git branch strategy? Spoiler alert, the answer is it depends. Because there are pros, cons to everything, depending on what people are doing. So Git flow is very popular. And there is built-in support. So if you are working in a place that is using Git flow, you will be happy to know about this little section over here. Where is there's the UI customization for the Git flow, and I'm trying to remember where it lives. Am I just being blind or stupid? Oh, down here. There we go. So for people unfamiliar with Git flow, it just has a very well-defined way of how and when to branch, where branches merge back in, and what those should look like, right? If you are working in a place that looks like that, here's your options, right? Most places, if you're using Git flow, it's usually because they want a highly, standardized way of managing everything. And they oftentimes pick the defaults, which is right about there. So you might be a one green click button away from being all happy and ready to go. I will also point out LFS. If you are using large files on Git, so anything that's binary, oftentimes, images are a common use case for a lot of people. LFS is the way to go, especially if you have binary files that are getting changed, because every time you commit with a binary file, you end up getting a complete copy, not a delta like what you would in a text file. LFS is designed to mitigate that so that your repo doesn't just become a major drag every time you go to clone it. So, yeah. So switching back here. Git flow, GitHub flow. This is the one that if I am left to my own devices and people say, hey, what branching strategy should we use? This is my answer. Because this is just enough complexity to handle what I see as real world use cases and nothing more, right? There was a great quote from one of my colleagues a couple weeks ago where he said that a lot of developers see simple projects fail and assume that simplicity is the problem and complexity is the solution, right? And that is a trap. That is not a good thing, right? So you'll note in this one, it is a much. I thought they had a picture in here. I was hoping they had a picture. Oh, it looks like the image links are dead. Oh, bad GitHub. Bad GitHub. Why are your image links dead? They had a beautiful picture in here. In terms of just being able to merge in. The key thing here, right? Master branch is deployable, right? To work on something new, you create a branch off of master, right? New OAuth scopes. You do your work on that branch, right? When you need feedback or you think it is ready, you open a pull request back. And then once it is merged to master, you deploy immediately. Right? Everything that goes in, out the door, ship. Now, deploy does not always mean production. It could mean a development environment. That's okay. Right? And it scales. Right? Works for GitHub. People always think that they're a special snowflake. Works for GitHub is pretty good. Right? Oh, there we go. Should have just scrolled down. So you can see here the issue that comes with this. If something looks simple, you just don't know it enough. I love it, Izzy. The issue with GitHub Flow comes right here in this graph, right? This is where things break down, right? See if I can make this bigger. Right? So let's imagine each of these colors are a separate developer. So you got a team of 4 developers, right? We'll call light blue, dark blue, purple, and pink. Those are our developers. And purple was clearly on vacation for the first start of the week and didn't get going until Tuesday. All the other developers started on Monday. They all branched off of their main branch, right? And started working on their features. For whatever reason, purple was off Monday. They had a doctor's appointment, whatever. Right? Light blue and dark blue, they get their features done pretty quick. Right? Same day, they open a PR and they start merging it in. Tuesday comes along, who knows what these guys did? They're off doing whatever. Purple makes a branch, maybe blue is also purple, and starts working on feature 4. right? Meanwhile, Pink is chugging along. Pink was the developer that was kind enough to say, you know what? That's a big, ugly story. I'm taking it. It's going to take me a little bit. Don't worry. I got this, right? And so commit. And by the time Pink goes to merge back into main, there's all these other changes that have made it back in. And you'll note, at least in terms of GitKraken, these aren't merge commits. They're squashing. I'm a squash person myself. I like it. And what happens is Pink gets around and there's now a conflict. And the question comes, how to resolve that conflict. Because let's imagine that, you know, all of these are touching the exact same file. Make it ripe for conflicts. What is Pink to do? Now, a common approach that people will take is they will say, here's what we do. We merge main into our feature branch and resolve the conflicts. This is a strategy that a lot of people like because when they're looking at the conflicts of that merge from main coming into their branch, the conflicts look as they would expect, right? And by that I mean, if you were to look at when Pink opens the PR into main, the conflicts match what they see in the PR. It conceptually makes sense. Right. I'm doing a merge after this commit, right? Because if Pink were to merge main into their branch, conceptually, let's just imagine that what that means is there's going to be an extra line here, right? With one more commit coming in. And GitKraken terminology, it's a filled in dot, not an open dot. And it's important to note where this dot is. It is after these other three. So, because it is after those other three dots, it looks at the merge conflicts look as they expect, because the conflicts show up as they exist on main compared to how they exist on the latest state of feature 3 branch, right? Latest on both. If you take the rebase approach, which is my preferred mechanism, just to be clear, what that ends up doing is the base of this branch, feature 3, is this commit right here, right? This is the base. And the reason there are conflicts is because you started here and now there's 1, 2, 3, 4 commits that are, and 1 to 4 of those are causing conflicts with some change you made over here. When you rebase, what that does is it takes this line and moves it up to here. Putting my art skills to the test. I don't have any, so I'm failing. And what it ends up doing is it replays this commit starting from here. Then it replays this commit on top of that. And then it replays this commit on top of that. The problem with this is then when the conflicts show up, they show up not based upon the final state of your feature 3 branch, but they show up based upon the intermediate states of your prior commits. So in this case, there's only 3 commits on feature 3. Great, that's easy. There could be 30. And especially if maybe this feature drug on for a week and you've got a team that's fairly active, there can be a lot of different things going on there. This is also a reason not to have a long-lived branch. I'm horrible about this, but that's a different discussion. When you rebase, that oftentimes causes people problems, and they're like, I have to resolve the same conflict 5 times, especially if they're like me. I use commits like save points in a video game. I get something mildly working. It may not even compile. I may just have one method working. The whole rest of the file is still falling apart. And I go, yep, commit, right? I may not push the commit, but I make commits a lot because 1, I see them as mutable and fudgeable that I can change later. And 2, they're my save points. So I can go back to those. If I realize I'm in trouble, I go, yep, revert, go back, video game, try again, restart, right? It's a wonderful feature. That is the power of Git. So if you are in the rebase camp, like I am, one trick I will propose, especially in a situation like this, if you are using a GitHub flow style where when you merge back into main, you are squashing everything, right? If you are squashing everything on your way back into main, these 3 commits do not matter. The summation, the aggregate of these commits matter, but the individual commits do not matter once you get back to main. All of these commits are being squashed together, right? So if you are at a point where you are trying to merge back into main and there are conflicts and you want to rebase, right? One strategy I like to use is I like to squash all of the commits on this branch and then do the rebase. So what does that look like, right? I'm going to pick on this branch here, right? So in this case, you'll note this is actually a fairly good example. Hide that for a second. Okay, so master's here, right? My local master is here, which is where this branch started from, right? I started working, I did some commits, right? Some other people came along, and we're going to ignore the fact that this is actually the PR merging. Pretend like this is somebody else. And they did some work, right? And now I want to go and do this, but I realize, shoot, right? There's conflicts. A simple strategy, if you select multiple commits in GitKraken and right click, you can squash them together, right? So I'm just going to squash these 2 commits. And you'll note now what has happened is I've got a brand new commit. When you start moving things around, because GitKraken shows things chronologically, what you will find happens is as you're rebasing and as you're doing all of this Git manipulation, for lack of better words, you'll find your stuff always rises to the top because chronologically it's now latest. Because this commit is brand new, brand spanking new. The fact that it happens to be made up of these other 2 commits data, completely arbitrary, right? And then we want to rebase. Here's the rebase operation. And there's multiple ways you can do this, right? So you can come in here and you can, so it'd be nice if there was a little expander icon, but you can actually expand collapse here, right? I can right click on master here and say rebase. I will point out that is not the same as right clicking on master here and hitting rebase. Because remember, this is local. So the local one up here is going to be pointed to this reference down here, whereas the one on origin is the one up here, right? And origin is where we're trying to merge to. My personal favorite is drag drop, right? This is drag drop is powerful in here, right? Again, some people like their keyboard and don't like the fact that GitKraken has some things that are mouse only. Drag drop is very much mouse only. But you know what? It's really powerful here, right? And we can see, okay, we're going to rebase 3464 onto origin master. Yep, that's exactly what we want to do. Perfect. Now, I'm going to change my window size so my big head isn't in the way. On the right-hand side, we get our conflict resolution graph. Because we squashed and because our commit has now become latest, we now get to resolve the conflicts as they exist between latest on our branch and latest on target branch, which in this case is origin master. So in this case, it's saying, hey, it looks like this commit's already there. Do you want to skip it? Yep, just a little GitKraken tutorial. And poof, we now rebase, and you'll notice our commit disappears because we said skip, because Git accurately identified that, right, that is in fact the same commit. Therefore, there's nothing to apply. So I'm just going to go ahead and rebase your branch on top of master. But because there's no longer a commit to apply because we skipped it, that just puts you in sync, right? You know, this patch has already been applied. Great, go away. I will point out one other thing too. This little +1, this is very handy to keep an eye on because it means that at this particular commit, there are multiple references, right? This is quite useful, especially if like people are cutting release branches, tagging, that kind of thing. You'll start to see these numbers count up because usually feature branches, they don't stay in sync with main or master very long. They tend to go whoop, and I mean, hopefully they go and move. Okay, next thing that is incredibly powerful, Git reset. I love this feature. Love, love, love this feature. This is both the simplest and one of the most powerful things with Git. So Git reset says take my current pointer and put it somewhere else. Right? So in this case, I've got a pointer, and you know what? I'm going to rename this so that I can where's my rename button? Boom, rename. And we're going to call this I got to be careful with my name. Example pointer. There we go. There we go. Boom. And most dangerous. Details. What's life without a little adventure, right? So I have example pointer. If I want to take this pointer and put it somewhere else, this is the fundamental thing of why I highly recommend that learn.gitkraken.com course. Link incoming for anybody who wasn't around earlier. Oftentimes, there is a desire to just move a pointer around because it's like, I see where I want it to go, especially in GitKraken with this nice graph. I see where I want it to go happens a lot. It happens a lot. So for example, I had example pointer. It's like, you know what? I just did that sample on Rebase, but I'd like to go back to where I was so I could do another example, right? And we can see this is right where we were. Right click, reset, and now we have choices. Soft, mixed, and hard. Hard is the most simple, right? Hard says don't think, throw away any changes that get in the way, move there now, right? If you're used to the Windows CLI, shut down -F or kill -9. There's a Linux reference for you, for your Linux folks out there, right? This is a go there now, don't think, right? Just make it so. Now, sometimes that's a little aggressive, right? It's very handy at times where it's like, you know what? I don't care about the deltas between things. I just want this pointer to be over here. Don't think, put it there. I need a pointer over there, right? Now, as Benjamin pointed out, this is a great way to lose work. So, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. Or we start talking Git reflog. That's a fun one too. Here. We will demonstrate that. Git, it's just reflog, right? Yeah. So here's a secret one for you. People talk about all the time in Git about how you haven't lost work, right? Like it's all there. You just don't know where it was. Well, here's the thing. As long as you have your hash of a commit, even if it's no longer showing up in your tree, you can go back there. You can get there. As long as it's still in your ref log. And your ref log, as the name implies, all these branches are references. And so a ref log is a log of those references and where they have been, right? That's all it is. It's no fancier than that. It is a log of where your references went. And you can use that to say, I want to be able to jump back to somewhere in that log file. Great. That is oftentimes how you get yourself back. It was there, but I don't know where it is. Yeah. Details. Don't ruin my grammar. I was making a point, and it was a wonderful point, right? But you can start to see, hey, here is all of our hashes. And you'll note there's this head 1, head 2, etc., right? There is some very fancy syntax that I cannot remember what it is. Git reflog. I could have probably. No, I just want the docs. Thanks. There is some fancy stuff you can do in here. Yeah, this. You can do so. This is one of those things that gets used so rarely. I think it's one of those things I just want people to know this exists. Know to go look at the docs page when you need it. I don't use it enough to remember the syntax, but I know it's there. And so the half a dozen times a year when I need this, it's really awesome. You get to be the wizard, right? So you can literally say, find me where my master branch was 1 week ago. right? Like that's awesome. That is awesome, right? To be able to go through and say, hey, where is this? This is one of those features that there's a suggestion out on the suggestions GitKraken.com of, hey, it'd be really nice if this was exposed in a nice, easy UI somewhere that we could leverage. That'd be really cool. Now, the problem is you then have to come up with what a nice looking UX is for this. And that's just not done yet, right? But they're upvote here. I'll save you. Suggestions.getkraken.com. Oh wait, no, it's not suggestions, it's feedback. See, there we go. And then ref log. So if anybody wants to go upvote this thing, yeah. Hey JC, today's topic is, we'll call it advanced Git, specifically GitKraken, because of my deep and utter love for it. But we are detouring into Git ref log for a minute. But so the important thing here, though, to note is because the ref log keeps track of where your references were, if you find that you have Git reset yourself into a problem state and you're like, oh shoot, I just trimmed that branch and I'd really like it back. This is how you get it back, right? So Git ref log is your friend. Again, the important thing to remember is 1, Git ref log exists. 2, there is fancy syntax for being able to do like date math on the pointers to say, hey, where was I last week, right? Last Monday, I'm pretty sure this was working. Reset me to there, right? If you can do that, then it's really handy. So A, know that those things exist, and B, Git reflog -- help get you to I think I could have just gotten myself right to that page if I had done that. See, I should have done that. See, that would have been a much simpler way of getting there. Yeah, what if you do something like squash and your commit ID changes? Does it snag the commit? Yes. It is a log of where you were. So yes, it will keep track of your original changes. Let's see here. I was hoping I could point out here. So you can see there's the reset where I executed the move. There was the branch rename. So you can see it changed the ref name so we can follow through. We can see there is the rebase where I rebased onto master. There is the rebase checkout because when you start a rebase, it has to move you back to the branch you're targeting and then replay your commits. In this case, it was really short because there was only the one commit because we squashed and we said skip it. So it was real quick and easy. And then you'll note here, this one, this commit here, so 87A, you'll note that's not this commit, that's not this commit. This commit here is the one from our squash that's up there. That's no longer on here, right? So there's the SHA of where we want to be, right? So git checkout. What is the bloody command? There we go. Boom. So I'm in a detached head state because I didn't like move a branch or whatnot. But now I am back at my squashed commit that I lost, right? Because even though I squashed and merged around, I still have it in my ref log. So this is also a good reason why you shouldn't just torch your directory and recreate or reclone, because your ref log locally is not likely to match something that what was seen on the server, because Git is distributed. Your ref log of local is tracking where all your local stuff moved around. You may not have pushed that, right? That may not be there. So don't torch your directory. Resist temptation. But But that's a quick and easy way to get back to it. And now we can go whoop, reset. That was revert, not reset. Reset hard, right? Actually, I want to, so get me back on my branch. So double clicking also on one of the references will get you on to, or will do the checkout of that branch. Double clicking on the local or remote branches will do the same thing. It'll automatically check it out. If you double click on a remote branch, it'll prompt you to create a local and check out there. So that is also very, very helpful as well. The other thing that's worth noting, so reset mixed, because sometimes you want to go backwards, but you want to keep working changes. So for example, let's imagine I made this commit and I went, you know, I didn't actually mean to put everything in this commit that I wanted. I put both these files in, but you know, I really think I just want the one. Like, let's imagine we only want the text block tests in this commit. One option I have is right clicking here and saying reset mixed. So you'll note it says, let's see if I can grab it. Oh, look. Keep working copy, but reset index. So it's going to keep my working changes, but reset where my branch is at. So if I go reset mixed here, what it ends up doing is it backs me up one commit, but it wants my working directory to stay in the same state that it was when there was a commit. So those changes that exist here are now in my unstaged. And now I can go, you know what? Yeah, text block text, this is the one I need, right? This one, don't care anymore, go away. Or I can stage part of it, or I can do whatever I need to do, right? And now I can go through and go back and forth. Mixed is very helpful, especially I find it's very helpful in short range, right? When I want to back up a few commits, it's like, yeah, you know what? I started down this refactor, but I don't think I actually want this refactor as part of this PR. Let me back up to, because again, I'm committing rapidly and often. So I'm going to back up a few commits before I started this refactor. And then, you know, maybe I'll stash those changes or do whatever I want with them. Because, you know, if I want to stash them, boop, stash, boop, pop them off. And then I can kind of branch and start going somewhere else, which is quite handy. The last one, and we're gonna reset all. Oh, I didn't actually want to, I wanted to move my pointer back up. Reset, there, go up. All right, boom, there we go. Oh, I'll point this out. GitKraken does have an undo button, right? Undo. Don't rely on this, because it can only undo some actions. Some actions in Git are just not reversible, right? And so it can undo things that are simple, like moving pointers and refs around. That's fine, right? That's an easy thing of, ooh, I know where I was. Let me go back there. Great, right? That example earlier where I reset myself here and I open the ref log to go back to it. An undo would have been a much easier way of doing it, right? Which is great. It's very handy. But it doesn't work on a lot of operations. So don't assume that you can always undo, right? Very handy when you want to go back to an operation that is reversible, right? Some of them are not logically reversible. So just be aware of that. And redo is exactly as you'd expect, right? And I will admit, I don't know why I never use this button. Never touch this button. I instinctively, whenever I want to create a branch, I always right click on my graph and do create branch, because I always want, like, yes, I know that this branch button will create a branch wherever I'm currently at. Conceptually in my head, I know that. But I just never, I don't know why. There's something that feels good about right clicking and saying, no, darn it, this is where I want my branch to start from. I don't know why. JC, absolutely. I love WPF stuff. Also, material design in XAML 5.0 probably releases before next stream. Remind me, I'll circle back. There's a pinned issue that is a pinned discussion that is worth looking at for the 5.0 migration notes. I wrote it up and I went through it on one app and it worked great. And so I'm probably just going to keep it. Okay, so reset, rebase, ref log. Trying to think what else is very, very useful. There is this hidden little thing down here. Compare against working directory. Oh, what I want to show is the merge stuff. Let's do this on a different repo. Oh, I didn't even show workspaces. Oh, shoot. Or the focus view. Oh, I'm missing so many things. Okay, quick run through of focus view. There is a video on GitKraken's channel about this with me. If you want to see more, check it out. I did it on the slightly older one, so you know the UI is a little prettier than when I did the video. Focus view is awesome, right? You get to go through and do pick a workspace, hosting provider. You get a nice breakdown of PRs, issues, work in progress. You can snooze items. This is an absolute joy for being able to go through and leverage, especially like GitHub is fine, but if you've got things spread across multiple repositories, it's a pain in the neck, right? This puts them all together, right? You decide the workspace, you decide what repos are in that workspace, right? You can group stuff together and now you have one place to see all the things, right? It was really obnoxious working on a project where things were spread across multiple things. And everybody's like, what repo do I put this on? It's like, well, it doesn't matter if I can get it here, right? Problem solved. Wonderful. So that's focus view. So focus view, think of it as the, where do I find my stuff? Where do I get my work? Where do I see my team's work, right? Where do I find my open PRs? Like, what is Kevin slacking in? There's my list, right? Let's see. I put a question in the general Discord channel about counseling edit changes from a view model. Oh, cool. Oh, my Discord has crashed. Okay. I will check it out, JC. And yes, you'll either get a reply or we can queue that up for next week. Workspaces. So workspaces come in two flavors, cloud and local. If you only have a free account of GitKraken, you can use local workspaces. You don't even need a paid account, right? So if you use the GitKraken CLI, which is free, don't even need an account, right? If you don't run GK login, right, you are running sans account, totally free. You're off to the races. You can create a workspace that you can use to like bulk pull and various like grouped operations on your repository. No account even needed, right? That's pretty cool, right? So I've got a personal workspace where I load up a whole bunch of repositories of things that I care about. I can see the PRs across all of those repositories. I can see immediately looking down, I need to set up Dependabot or auto merge for my Dependabot PRs. Oh, on a handful of repositories because I see a whole bunch of PRs from Dependabot that I apparently am ignoring. And I'd prefer to not think about those and have this list not have a whole bunch of crap in it. I can see there's a few PRs that are really old that I probably should get to. And then the last thing here is insights. Now, on a set like this of repositories where these are Kevin's personal projects, I don't care about my metrics, right? Some weeks I put a bunch of time in on them, some weeks I don't. And the metrics don't matter, right? For a business project, these metrics might matter. For a project I was on, I was leveraging them on like our sprint and reviews, not really to like beat people over the head of why isn't things going well, but it was very useful for like forecasting, right? When it was like, hey, what is the merge rate? How fast are we pushing things through? Now you'll note this isn't measuring stories. This is measuring pull requests, right? How many PRs are merged per week? What is the merge rate of PRs being merged versus PRs being opened, how many PRs are being opened, all that kind of stuff, right? And you've got 7 days and 14 days that you can go back and look, because most people are running, 1 or 2 week sprints, right? So my metrics look a lot better if I go back 2 weeks, because clearly 2 weeks ago I was doing stuff and the last week I apparently wasn't, right? I can see how productive I've been in one easy page. Very, very effective. Okay, all of this to say, I wanted to go show off something over here, right? So different repo, AutoMocker repository, actual repository, not relevant, but if anybody wants to, oh, wow. That is not the link I thought it was going to be. Oh, it's a GitKraken link. I wish it would let me just copy this link, because half the time that's what I want. If anybody wants to play along, Mocking Library, very fun, very much love it. Anyway. Close this down, close this down, close this down. Seems this pulls locally from GK, is that true? AKA, if I launch a new workspace, it doesn't have metrics, those populate over time. It doesn't really pull from the latest pass on the remotes. If you create a cloud workspace and have it appropriately linked to a provider, you should get metrics immediately for cloud-based stuff. Local stuff, local workspaces, because you won't have a remote provider, I don't believe you can get insights, right? So you won't see insights on things that don't have a remote provider, because there's nothing to query. But yes, it should pull from past on all this, because I reset my stuff all the time, and go back and leverage this stuff, and it's always there. So because it'd be kind of annoying if you had to wait 2 weeks. Yeah, interesting if you've seen it not load. I ran into similar problems, and this is, you'll note, Insights is in preview, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm trying to remember the problem that I ran into was not having my integration connected down here. So once I fixed that, things showed up properly. But just know that GitKraken Insights and like GitHub integration are separate buttons, right? Because the Insights needs different permissions than just GitKraken client for interacting with repository, right? Insights requires now having appropriate permissions to be able to do things like query your PRs over the last 2 weeks, right? If it can't query that information, it can't do it. Whereas being able to query your past PRs over the last few weeks, that's not necessarily something that the regular repo integration necessarily needs. So just know that there is a separate one down here to be able to do that. And if your repos are spread across multiple providers, rinse, repeat for all of them. Otherwise, it no worky. Is seeing the SSH key a problem? This is the public side of my key, not my private side. So, you make a good point. I should cycle it. The nice part, cycling the key, is clicky clicky of the button. So that's one other thing I'm going to point out as well. Setting up SSH integration on GitHub is kind of a pain if you do it all in the CLI. It's kind of a pain. Big green button in GitHub or in GitKraken. Like, they made it easy, because normally you have to like go look up the appropriate commands, because I do it, once every 3 months. Haven't had to look up those commands in a very long time. It's very, very wonderful. You can gen a title, and it'll pop the page up in GitHub for you and pre-populate all the things. So as long as you're signed into GitHub, it just you type the stuff in, hit save. You probably do the 2-factor auth thing, and away you go. But thank you, JC. I appreciate the call out, because there have been a number of times where I didn't realize it for a couple weeks, and then somebody comments on my YouTube video and go, "Hey, you realize you did the blah blah blah?" I'm like, "Oh crap!" Yeah. And you can go and try to edit the video, but in my opinion, it's not worth it. It's better to just cycle the key. Call it a day. Okay, we were coming here. We were doing something. I'm trying to remember what I was interested in showing here. It had to do with branching and rebranching and moving branches around. And there was something in here that I wanted to show because I knew it would be a good example. I'm trying to remember what it was. Because we did the rebase. Oh, the merge tool. That's what I want to show. That's what I want to show. Okay, so I've got so these branches irrelevant, don't matter. I just would like to go through and show the let's do a oh yeah. So this is another wonderful thing I'll show real quick. So you'll note remote master here, local master here. Double click on remote master. It says you already have a local one. Like yes, fancy reset command, please. Whoop, back in sync. Ooh yeah, ooh yeah, ooh yeah, so wonderful. Okay. So I do want to do this and show off the I want to figure out how to get I want to get myself into a conflict state. Because you'll note I obviously am not going to be able to push this. Master is a protected branch. My world will end. Why did I think I had a good conflict here to show off? I don't think I have a good conflict here. Okay, let's go back. Go back. I'm going to go here. If we look down here, because I just want to show off conflict. Pull requests. I've got an old pull request here that pretty much guarantees conflict. Yeah, you. Checkout. That'll work. So this is an older branch. And if I say, hey, we're gonna merge it today. I do want to get it merged. Oh, this is one of the annoying things. Thank you. Stop moving around. Okay. Let's see. Push. No, I want to merge. Okay. Merge master into demo app. All right. This is what I want. There. Conflicts. Lots of conflicts. That's what we want. That's what we're going for. Okay. So if we were to do this, right? We come in here, we see the conflicts. This is the GitKraken conflict resolution thing. Few things to call out. Path, tree, right? Depending on what I am doing, I will be toggling these things back and forth. Sometimes it is very helpful to see the set of files as just a flat list. Sometimes I want to see them at a hierarchical structure because that matters. And more importantly, when you go into tree mode, you can take action at that folder level. That's kind of handy. Obviously, when you have no folders, you can't take action at a folder level. That's not a thing. It doesn't exist, right? So if we open this up, this is their three-way merge tool. I will point out, I'm fairly confident this is one of the features that comes with Pro that you don't get on free tier. So, but that with the new licensing model, that may not matter, and so you might just scratch that from your memory. Okay, so important things to note. One, the name of the branch on the left, name of the branch on the right. So we can see B is my master branch, and A is ye olde branch for demo app changes. Now you can see there are checkboxes here to say take all of A, right? We just want the demo app side. Don't think. We can also say take all of B. That's also an option. Rarely is take all the right answer, right? Normally we want something a little bit smaller. And you can also see there is this nice little set of buttons in the middle showing us the number of conflicts, right? We can bounce between them. These are the same. If you were to open up the file in a text-based editor, you'd see the little git lines with the little alligator braces going, this is where it's coming from. This is just a pretty representation of it. Right? And at each of these individual chunks, you can decide, you know what? Do I want A? Right? And we can see what it looks like down here. Do I instead want B? Or, and this is where the power starts to come in, Do I want both? A followed by B? You'll note the order I click matters. Or do I want B followed by A? That's interesting. What if the answer is I want these two lines of A, but then I want to inject these lines of B, and then these followed by these two lines of A. You can do that. What if we realize, you know what, that's pretty close, except for this one isn't right in either of them, and I actually want it to be star. Right? This is how you can solve conflicts really, really nicely. Right? This is wonderful. So this style of merge editor has saved me many, many times of being able to do this. And then more importantly, once you are done and you are happy with all of the conflicts, because it's not going to be happy if we hit save. It's going to go, hey, you didn't actually resolve. Like, you took care of one, but, you know, there's a few more to deal with. So fine, we'll deal with them all. And we'll say, you know what, that one. This is clearly wrong, by the way, but you know what, we're doing it. Right? And so now we hit save, and then we go on to the next file and rinse, repeat, right? And we can keep going through each of these. So this three-way merge is what it is called. This is one of the areas where I think JetBrains does it really, really well. GitKraken has a really nice editor and UI for this. The one advantage JetBrains tools have is they know about code. Most Git tools only know about text, and that's different, right? JetBrains gets to cheat because they know about code and they can do like code structure. They go, that's a method. Git is an idiot. Git knows, that's a line. Those are not the same thing, right? Those are very, very different. And so a lot of the way people write code comes back to that idea of how Git treats lines and goes, if we write our code a particular way, it makes it better for Git. Right? I was working on a project and there was a discussion. So it was C#, and C# has two different styles of comments, right? The double // right? So you can comment something out by doing this, or you can do the C style comments where it's like this, right? And in C#, either works. They both function exactly as you expect. And there was a discussion among the team, and it was decided, we should do C style comments, not the double slashes, which is mildly annoying because in Visual Studio, if you use Control KC, the hotkey for comment things out, it does the double slashes. And I get why. It's easier to implement, right? But the disadvantage is this causes a diff on a bunch of lines, whereas this only causes a diff on 2 lines. Again, all coming back to the idea of Git only knows about lines. And so sometimes people write their code very specifically because of how the source control works. Kind of weird, kind of dumb. Feels like we should have better tools. AI, please solve this problem for us. Regardless, right? This is what I really want, is an AI-infused code review merge tool. That would be awesome. That would be epic. Right? And you'll note reset button in the corner for when you realize, crap. Yeah, there's your go backwards button. It's actually interesting. I'll log that as a bug. Their reset button is cut off. I just screenshot that real quick. And that's going to go on a docket for a bug to submit. See? We submit all bugs because I know that they are responsive. So, but that is the merge editor. It is very useful, highly valuable. Make sure you leverage it. And we are going to abort this merge because merging something that old is likely to make me pull out my eyes. Okay, let's see. Ref. Trying to think. Did I hit all of my notes on my high plate? Oh, okay. One other thing for a Git feature that does not get enough love. And since it doesn't get enough love, Apparently I closed it. Feedback.GitKraken. Bisect. Right? You can see this has been upvoted a couple times. If anybody wants to give it an extra upvote, please feel free. This is one of the most powerful Git features. It is one that you feel like a wizard when you use it well. It just there's not a sometimes using the tool is harder than just doing it manually. Right? Okay, so here's what Git bisect is. Let us imagine that I get a bug report on material design, heaven forbid, right? And somebody says, you know what? I'm on version 4.9, right? Or version 4.10, whatever release they're on. And it's working and this feature is working just fine. But when I grab your latest nightly release, it's broken. And I go, ah, crap. I don't know where I broke that, right? This happens. Sometimes you get a bug report and you go, yeah, I know exactly. I know what line that's on. I don't even need to think. I know exactly where that bug is, right? But sometimes they're a little more obscure. Like, hey, your ripple effects don't look right anymore after this. And it's like, I don't know which, like, you can do a blame on a file, but if you don't know what file to look in, sometimes it's not obvious. This is where Git bisect comes into play. So the idea is, if I were to go from my master all the way back, sync that up. If I were to go from master and go all the way back to my last tag, looking for a bug, I would probably do some sort of wacky binary search where I go, okay, reset, or maybe I just do check out this commit, right? So if you do check out this commit, it puts you in what's called a detached head state, meaning I've got a head, but I'm not on a branch. So if I start making commits, there's no branch to send them to. So this is check out commit with detached head is often for the, hey, I just want to go see what this looks like here. I'm not like going to work there, right? This is, I'm visiting, not I'm staying, right? So I might check out this commit and go, okay, let's see if it's broken here, right? Test it. And okay, still broken. Go back. How about here? And then I go and test it and see if it's still broken. And then we go, well, still broken. Let's try here, right? And we just keep bouncing around trying to find it, right? So what Git bisect does is it automates that entire process, right? So if we do this, so Git bisect, you feed it what it calls good and bad. Think of it as bug exists, bug doesn't exist. Because quite often when I'm using this, that's what we're chasing down is, does bad, bug exists, good, bug doesn't exist. And Git bisect really doesn't care which side you make good and bad. That it's completely arbitrary. Just you have to be consistent. Otherwise, a binary search doesn't work. And what it will end up doing is it will take those ranges and jump you to the middle, and then you say, am I good or am I bad? Right? And then it will start zeroing in, binary search style, all the way in until you tell it, got it. This is the commit that matters. Right? And if people get really fancy, if you are able to execute a command on the command line to prove whether a bug exists or not, you can actually automate the entire process, because Git bisect is kind of meant to be interactive, right? It'll do the Git portion for you of jumping you around and kind of doing that binary search all the way in. But at the end of the day, after it checks out the commit, you still have to go in and test your code at that commit and say, yes, bug exists, or no, bug doesn't exist, because Git doesn't know that stuff, right? But if you were able to go through and say, have some sort of CLI command or some script that you could execute that says, okay, launch my app and run this test, great. You are home free. You can totally automate your way all the way through. And so you go through and tell it start, bad, good, right? Like this is literally the commands. Good, bad, and so it can tell you, because it's a binary search, I think it's going to take X amount before we zero all the way in on where we're going to land. Again, this is one of those features that I think is more important that people know exist than know necessarily how to use it, because the number of times you need it is not that high. Right? And the reason I say that is because most of the time when we get bugs, we oftentimes know the file to look in. We can blame a file rather than looking through and get bisecting through a bunch of commits. Oftentimes file history is more likely to net us the expected result, because if we know, yeah, the bug, well, it has to be in this file, I look at history, there's only 3 commits. It's a little quicker for me to do my own search through those commits than a git bisect through. Git bisect is really for the cases where you don't have an easier way of zeroing in on it. So, well worthwhile tool to know that exists to be able to leverage. Okay, my list. There's all the GitKraken stuff. Let's see. We did terminal, focus view. I think I want to point out a couple things in here. So there's a handful of things that are really nice inside of some of these. For example, this pinning and snoozing, because sometimes there's like, yep, this is a priority item that I want to keep an eye on, and then there's other times where it's like, nah, I don't want to think about this, right? You see stuff coming through and it's like, nah, let's just snooze this. And 1 hour, 4 hours, or until tomorrow, it's like, yeah, that Kevin guy, he can wait till tomorrow. That's okay. We can let that go. And all snoozed is really just pushed over to this other page. That's it. Like snooze is not more advanced than that. It just pushes you off to this side. The other really nice part about this focus view is it does give you these kind of nice, easy options for, opening GitHub, jump immediately to the repository, right? So I can say, oh yeah, I know Nikolai is looking at this. Let's just jump into the repository and we will take a look at this, and we can then go from there. So it is a nice, easy way of figuring out where to start your work from. This is also an area in the because you'll note there's a focus in the CLI. So if we do I am on the wrong workspace. GK workspace. Workspace am I on? Personal? Oh. What was the command to switch? Let's see. Workspace. I want to switch workspaces. Switch. So it turns out the command to switch is labeled switch. Well, that was a conveniently named one to make me look stupid. Okay. All right, so now I can go GK focus. And so again, if you were on your if you were just running the free account in the CLI, this is going to be problematic for you because, well, that isn't something you can easily do without having a remote to play with. But you can see I end up with the very similar view to what I have in GitKraken client, but now it's full on terminal mode, right? And I can move back and forth between the things. I could go up and down. I can say, okay, let's, so you can see S down here for snooze item, right? And then the item just jumps across. I can go back over to my snoozed item and go, you know what? Let's bring that guy back, put it across, pin, tab, move around. So this is, I think, a beautiful example of what the purpose of the GitKraken CLI actually is. It is to bring these other features in a reasonable way to the command line. Now, the one thing that people might feel, might feel a little bad about GK graph. right? What people would hope would happen would be that you would get a graph display inside of your terminal. That's not actually what happens, right? So because this graph doesn't lend itself well to terminal rendering, right? Maybe if somebody wanted to get fancy, there's some cool libraries out there that use ANSI codes and do that kind of stuff. But you'll note opens a visual commit graph in GitKraken client or GitLens VS Code. So as long as you have one of the other tools, the GK graph is an integration point to take you from the terminal into that other tool. It's not a direct replacement, right? So there is that thing. It is also a convenient way to post feedback. So if you have that, it does totally work. Okay, there's that workflow services covers everything I wanted to. I think that may be it. A lot. Again, I am very much biased towards GitKraken. One, because I'm an ambassador. Two, because I love it. But always happy to hear critique. And I will say this: it's not like GitKraken is above reproach or anything. Like, they are a software company. They have bugs like everyone else. Sometimes things don't work, but like I said, they do have excellent support, and they are receptive to feedback and will implement changes, at least in timing that makes sense, right? Remember, they're developer teams. They've got a finite number of hours in a day like the rest of us, unfortunately. And so sometimes things have to get prioritized and they get fixed eventually, or at least in priority order. So sometimes things are just low priority, or, effort levels very high and things get weird. On the workspace thing, these commands here are the same ones that you get for that you can do in the CLI. So being able to like bulk fetch, bulk pull, all of those things. Hey, Bigfoot is real. These are this is one of the nice things about workspaces, of being able to go through and bulk manage things. The use case that often gets thrown out is you bring a new person onto your team, you share the workspace with them. Like, obviously this is a personal one, but you can see this here, right? We can share this workspace with your team. And so if your team works across 4 or 5 repositories, new team member comes on, you share the workspace with them and say, click the pull all button. And now they have all the repositories that they need, and they're off to the races. 62 hours a day. Yes, I wish, Izzy. I usually joke with people that's like, what, you haven't upgraded to the 28-hour day yet? I mean, it's very easy to get the extra 4 hours. Or you just sacrifice sleeping, because there's no way that causes problems for anyone, right? So, but this is an excellent way, and I personally end up using it as just a way of managing all of my repositories in one place. You can see, even though I've got this repository, I actually check out different repositories differently on different machines. So I have a shared cloud workspace, and then on different machines, I may clone or relocate them into a slightly different directory depending on what machine I'm on. And sometimes I just torch my dev directory. So, some of these just aren't there anymore because I got rid of them. I didn't need them. And it is really convenient to be able to go through and do. There are number limits, and I don't remember what they are. They're fairly generous. In terms of like number of workspaces that you get and number of like repositories in a workspace. But there are caps. It's not unlimited. I'll put it that way. Sleep. Yeah. Izzy, weren't you the one who started this at 5 a.m.? If it makes you feel better, I started my day at like 6:30. That is early for me. I don't like 6:30 a.m. days. They are long, especially on days where I'm streaming until 11 o'clock at midnight. So yeah, the sleep thing gets to you. Is it possible to open up the last commit? Let's see. Possible to open up the last commit of a branch into a working unstaged state. Oh, sure. Sure. So we'll go ahead and I'll just take my example pointer and I'll back it up here. Okay. So the last commit of a branch into a working unstaged state. So that would be like this commit here, right? So we've got, I'm just gonna do some drawing, right? So this is my latest commit. You'll note it's the base that links back up to master is here. So this is a branch with 2 commits on it, and we say, hey, I want this last one in a uncommitted state. So assuming you're in a starting position like this, the easiest way I know to do it is get yourself to here, right click, reset, mixed. Boom. And you'll note I have now gone backwards 1 commit, right? This commit is still showing up because I've got a different branch here, but the reset mixed, and I'm gonna undo that even. See, I don't know if it's actually gonna undo properly. Oh, it didn't. That's even worse. Okay, reset all. Put me back in a clean state, and then I'm gonna get rid of the stash because it's annoying me to look at. Okay. How come that's green? Everything else shows red. So the important idea here is this reset mixed. Keep working copy. So this means working copy in the terms of Git is like your working directory, the current state of your files. So keep working copy means I want the state of my files to remain as they are right now, right? But reset the index. So in this case, index is referring to the state of our ref, our branch that we're going to back up. So it's, I want to move my branch, but I want to keep my files in the same state that they are right now. What does that mean for Git? Right? And so in that case, in this case, so reset, mixed, and poof, we're backwards 1, and we've got a set of working changes. The other kind of dirty trick I'll show. Hang on one second. Let's see. Very often I find myself reviewing my own commit, wanting to make a change before a push, and just squashing a new commit over it. This is much nicer. Yeah, so that happens a lot to me as well, of wanting to do it. Quite often what I will do is I'll realize, shoot, you know what? I deleted XUnit, but here, we'll edit file, right? Oops, I know that I actually want XUnit back in here. Let me go and do this. And so quite often what I will do is I will stage and I will just amend my previous commit, right? And then bring it in that way. And so I'll just constantly do that. But it can vary, right? Sometimes that's a good option, sometimes it's not. But yeah, being able to go back into a working state. Let's see. Can you give me an idea for environment I can use for my game? Quick, you got 3 seconds. Bigfoot is chasing me. Yes, woodland, I guess. The other one that you can leverage a lot that I will often do is I will do a git revert. It depends on what's easy, but you do a git revert, but you don't hit the yes button, you hit no. So what that does is it gives you the inverse of your commit, but it gives it to you in working directory changes. So then you can choose, well, maybe I only want to revert one of these. Maybe I want to revert some of these, and then combine that with amend, and now I can effectively take something back out. Right? That ends up being a quick and easy way of going back and manipulating it. So yeah, there is a feature request that I've posted that I would love to be able to right click on a commit and revert file. Like I want that git revert behavior, but I want to execute the git revert, clicking the no, and then discarding all changes except for the file I selected. I really want that. I want that flow automated because quite often I'm looking back over a commit or a set of commits for a PR and it's like, oops, I committed that. I just want to take that one file out. So I would love to see revert file. The other thing I will show is this is a multi-select graph, right? So I can see the sum of my changes by just control or shift clicking on multiple commits. As you can see, viewing the diff between two commits, right? We can go all the way down here. You start adding more commits in. It gets really weird when you start doing stuff like this that are on disparate branches. You can get yourself into a weird state because, just so you know, viewing the merge diff of 7 commits that are on disparate branches is not the same as a merge commit. Those are not equivalent because this is just like cherry picking 7 commits. Like, that's not quite the same. Oh, cherry pick. That's a good one to show. That's a good one to show. This is one that I see people not realize exists all the time. So occasionally you realize, especially if you're squashing, cherry pick gets really powerful with a squash. So cherry pick is literally, hey, I want this commit and I want it over here. Gimme, right? I'm just going to imagine, here's the manual process that people go through. They go, oh, I made that change on a different branch. Hang on, let me switch to that branch. I'm going to copy those changes, and then I'll switch back and I'm going to paste those changes back in, right? That's the manual process people go through. If that's what you're thinking of doing, stop. Stop. There's a better way, right? So let's imagine that issue 3450, I realize, oh, yeah, these dialogue changes, yeah. If that's what I need. That's what I need. Everyone needs more dialogue, right? So right click here. You come over to cherry pick, and then just like revert, you get the same kind of options of, do you want these changes as working changes? Or do you just want me to spin this as a commit for you? It's like, nah, working changes is better, right? So you'll note it cherry picked it, and oh, that's bad. All the changes already exist. Ooh, okay, pick on this one. This one merged already too? Probably. Hang on, let me pick something newer. There's no way if I pick a newer one, right? We'll pull it backwards. Whoop. So I do this, and now I've got the changes as working directory changes. And so it's like, perfect. All of these changes that Nikolai did, cleaning up the nullable reference type stuff, excellent. Perfect. That's what we want, right? That's what we need on our example pointer branch. No, joking. Don't need it. Go away. Those are going to merge elsewhere. So that is cherry pick. While I'm in here, let me just briefly take a gander through these other ones. Reset, revert. There's all these copy options. Huzzah. Share as cloud patch we talked about. Compare commit against working directory. That is actually something that that I think gets overlooked a lot is the compare, because it's not always an easy thing to look at, right? So you can see working directory here, and then you can start to see where it diverges. It is a feature that I often forget about, mostly because I can just do a merge commit and look at it there. But either way, sometimes doing a merge commit that you know you're not going to push is dangerous, because then you accidentally click the push button. Wait, I think that tagging, yeah, something about to that effect. The other one though, the cloud patches, I will say this as well, is if there is something where you realize, oh yeah, it would be really great to be able to share those things as a cloud patch. The collaboration story is one that I'm very interested in being able to leverage more, specifically for on the code review side, being able, because that is a limitation of every code review tool that I'm aware of right now, is it's very difficult to leave comments on code that isn't directly part of the PR, because that's not the way PRs are typically set up. And it's quite common where, somebody makes a change, But I know, yeah, that's not going to work because you forgot to change this thing over here, right? PR comments are really good for commenting on what is. They're really bad at commenting on what isn't. Because then you have to try to verbally, like, especially if it's an async thing where people are like different time zones or whatever, you then have to try to type up an explanation of what you want them to do, or you have to go and just make a change and push to their branch, which I always get a little hesitant about. Like for me, I don't mind if multiple people collaborate on the same feature branch. I'm very happy about that. GitKraken has a built-in fetch. So behind the scenes, it is automatically fetching. Where is the, did I pass it? Yeah, auto fetch interval right at the top. Right. So every 60 seconds, it auto just fetches. Just get fetch, get fetch, get fetch, get fetch. So without doing anything, you will see your, like if you just let it sit there on an active repository, you'll see the graph update about every 60 seconds as the fetch comes in. It'll redraw the graph and you'll see things changes, which is awesome, right? I love that. I often can tell if I need to rebase my branch before I do anything because it's been auto fetching in the background for me, and I can see that, oh yep, my local branch is now behind by 3 commits, let's rebase. And so I aggressively rebase my feature branches onto main repeatedly, because that's where I know as long as I keep rebasing quickly, I'm not going to eat a big conflict later. But I can only do that because of that auto fetch that's going through and occurring. I really like it working on places where there's high collaboration and 2 people are editing on the same feature branch. I've often done this with other developers who feel confident in their Git abilities. It doesn't work for everybody. Some people it causes a lot of stress to. So take this with a grain of salt. But I do have one colleague, we've done this a couple times now, where there's a feature that we're working on. We're getting near the end of the sprint. It's like, hey, you want me to jump in and help? It's like, yeah, sure. If you want to take this area here, that'd be really great. Great, right? Like there's high collaboration. We're talking, it's not like we're both just willy-nilly pushing to this branch, but I jump in, hey, got some tests written in this area, fixed up this file, pushed. And there's usually a constant thing of, hey, pushed, pushed, pushed. Now, do we need that? Not really. We've got the auto fetch. We'll see it within 60 seconds. But sometimes it's convenient to know, oh, yep, I can do that almost immediately. And then you can have 2 people collaborate on a feature branch very, very effectively, right? But again, requires high communication, and people who are good with Git, or at least have GitKraken and willing to do that. Because again, for some people, that's a high stress situation, and it's more problematic to do. It's like, tell you what, I'll make my own branch. We'll be fine, right? Sometimes I branch off their feature branch, let them merge first, and then I just rebase on main afterwards. The dirty trick, because then I've already got their changes. My own little secret, because I just squash at the end. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Okay, perfect. Hopefully that was interesting to people. If there is more Git stuff or things people were hoping to see, or questions you've got on GitKraken, please hit me up. I'm gonna drop my. There's all the links to all the things. Kaboo.dev. It has my GitKraken referral link. Like I said, if you've seen this and going, hey, GitKraken looks cool. If you want to sign up for an account and you want to use my referral link, makes me happy. Otherwise, like I said, not a big deal. Otherwise, it's more important that people find a tool that they like. I will oftentimes tell people when I am teaching them Git that I don't actually care what tool they use, but if you're going to be working in software development, you kind of need to know Git, and you kind of need to be proficient with at least one of the tools. So if it's not GitKraken, that's fine, but make sure that you pick a tool that you can be proficient in, because it's getting really hard to find places that aren't using Git for their source control in some manner. Right? There's other stuff that exists, but Git is by far the most popular on different platforms. So with that, I will say for the material design stuff, 5.0 probably is releasing before my next stream, so within the next week. I did some more testing on stuff and didn't come up with any issues, which means it's probably ready to go. And then I'm going to queue up a 5.1 just for what I presume to be the inevitable bugs and issue requests and problems, because this is a big change with a lot of potential breaks. So if it goes out without a hitch, I think I'll be more surprised than if I get bugs reported. So if anybody wants to give it a try, grab the nightly release. Let me know if there's any issues you run into. Please check out the pinned discussion at the top. It does have migration notes. They are important. There are breaking changes. I am sorry, but there are breaks. It's the only way to move forward at times. So saved them all to do them all at a major version release, and there are shims to kind of make it less painful if you want to go that route. So with that, I will be signing off. As always, happy coding. We'll see everyone next time.